Currently, I think Arooj Mumtaz is brilliant. She has voice quality, her knowledge of the game and her vocabulary is something that really impresses me every single time I hear her. When I started watching cricket, I used to love Shoaib Akhtar. Then after that, there was an era where I admired Misbah-ul Haq for a very long time, especially for his tenacity and, the way that he carried the team through difficult times when we didn't have cricket in Pakistan. So it's very hard to pick a favorite, but if I had to, I would pick Pakistan's current skipper, Babar Azam, for that, because I think he's just maybe on a level right now that no one else is globally. So that's how much I love the game and that's how much I love my team. I'm talking about both my teams, by the way.
Hello and welcome to InferTalks, a podcast where I put you in the room with some of the biggest thought leaders from around the world. Today I have a special guest who's the first ever woman general manager of a PSL team. I have with me Ms. Hijab Zahid, general manager, Multan Sultans. Hijab, welcome to InferTalks.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Hijab, let's go ahead and start our conversation. And my very first question is, and before I do ask my question, let me go ahead and congratulate you on being appointed as first woman general manager of a PSL team. How do you feel about the new role and this development?
Thank you so much, first of all. And I feel very excited, a little bit scared, but very hopeful and grateful as well for this wonderful opportunity. And I really hope that I'm able to fulfill it to the best of my abilities and then some. And obviously, at the end of the day, my focus is the franchise itself, not myself. So I will try to fulfill. I have some big shoes to fill, but I'll try to, fulfill it to the best of my abilities.
So Hijab, getting to that position of a general manager, there must have certainly been a lot of little steps and giant leaps as well. What were those little steps and giant leaps that you really took, in this journey so far?
If I talk about my journey so far, it started about a couple of years ago, I would say. I was a part of a competition that was for up-and-coming commentators, and I took part in that. And obviously, I love to talk about cricket, so I just thought, maybe I should talk about cricket and make something out of it. So I was part of that competition. I didn't end up winning it. I ended up as the runners-up. But that's basically where the whole journey started. I got a couple of gigs as a presenter, as a commentator, and I've been working as a presenter and commentator for a while now. But it all changed. You were talking about big leaps. So the biggest leap that I took was at the start of this year when I was approached to run the platform that I'm running right now, that goes by the name of Grassroots Cricket. It's a domestic platform. It covers, cricket digitally in domestic cricket and international cricket related to Pakistan. So I've been leading that platform for about 7-8 months now. I started at the very beginning of this year, and that was the big leap. And the second big leap came just like, I guess, a week ago when I was approached by the owner of Multan Sultans, Ali Tareen. He was the one who asked me if I wanted to take up this mantle of a general manager. And although I understand that I'm not someone who has a lot of management experience in terms of this industry, although I have a lot of management experience. I am a certified project manager, but maybe not for a franchise team. But he has the belief that I can pull this off. So I just basically have to second him on that. And I took this responsibility. I only had to think about it for a minute and I said yes. So yeah, and here we are. So a long way to go. We'll have to see where all this ends up, but I'm really hopeful that it will be great for the franchise and also for a lot of women moving forward in the country as well.
And so Hijab, you were certainly among the finalists in the Voice of Pakistan contest itself. You've been involved in commenting on cricket related matters. Tell me, while growing up, who were some of your favorite commentators?
A lot of them. I have a long list of favorite commentators, but I guess for obvious reasons, I think Nasser stands out. He's someone who has been very iconic in very recent games for Pakistan. It just feels like, it feels incomplete if he's not commentating on a Pakistan game, especially in high octane game like maybe an India-Pakistan match or something like that. So he's one of those people who I really admire. But if I talk about maybe in Pakistan, currently I think Arooj Mumtaz is brilliant. She has the voice quality, her knowledge of the game and her vocabulary is something that really impresses me every single time I hear her. So those are the ones that I currently I can think of. But I have a lot of other favorite commentators as well.
Now, you certainly have, prior experience in computer engineering, and then you also are a certified project manager. Let me then ask you, with that kind of background, how did you develop a knack for cricket, and who inspired that love for the game, in you as a person?
So basically, it like my love for cricket goes way back. Since I was, I think, maybe 7 or 8 years old. I used to watch it a lot with my dad. That's when I started watching it, and he loved it more than he loved anything else. I think he loved the game so much that and he was always very patient. I had a million questions. Cricket is not an easy game to understand or to play. So I always had a million questions, and he used to answer them very, very patiently. So that's where the love developed, and I've always carried that with me, even though he's not with me anymore. But I know that wherever he is, he'll be happy to see me here. And it's not just him though, but it's my whole family, my siblings, my mother, everybody shares this love.
So, Hijab, now let me go ahead and ask you that, you did certainly mention the role of your family. How important was that, the role of the family, the encouragement from the family in terms of, encouraging that, that interest about the game itself?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the most important things if I talk about it. Without the support or without the I don't know, the help of your family, or without having someone who backs you and doesn't give up on you and keeps, pushing you to go for it. And without that, element missing in your life, I don't think anyone can end up where I ended up. So but I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm just saying it's very, very hard. So their support and their love and unconditional support basically has made it possible for me. I've had to make a lot of compromises just to make myself available for a lot of gigs. So they've always been there to fill in for me. They've always understood that this is important to me and this comes first. So I'm very, very thankful to them, and especially to my mother, who's been exceptional with this. She's never made me feel like I had to choose between them or this industry or this passion that I have for the game. So they've always been standing firmly with me, and I think that's the most important thing and the most basic thing that you need to get started.
Yeah, Hijab, I'm slightly, catching you off guard. But let me ask you, is there any unforgettable moment that you had with your family, especially with your father, related to cricket? Any special cricket memory?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of memories with my father, but they were very early memories. I do remember one game. I do remember the first time we both cried together
And
because of
which
a
game
cricket
was
game.
this?
That was back in 2007, the very first edition of T20 World Cup. Pakistan was playing India in the final, and Miss Haq was on strike, and we needed six from the last ball. He went for a ram shot, and he was caught, behind at third man, and we both thought in the moment that maybe he has connected and maybe the ball is going for six, but didn't. We ended up losing the final, the very first final of a T20 World Cup, and we lost to India, which wasn't very, very easy to digest. And I remember that moment that we both had tears in our eyes, and we both cried. That was the very first time. So Pakistan cricket team has given us a lot of great moments, but it has also given us a lot of trauma as well. So that was my first trauma. You can probably count that.
And any positive memories, when Pakistan's team, finally made it through the finish line?
Well, obviously, I have the memory of Champions Trophy 2017, but my dad wasn't with me at the time. He had already, passed away. But I do remember, but the rest of my family was, and that was a very special moment for all of us. And I was actually about to leave the country to go to for higher studies at the time, and that was one of our last moments together as a family before I went abroad for my higher studies. And it was special because I remember that it was also in Ramzan as well. So we just had a collective prayer session that we just want Pakistan to win it at all costs. So that was a great bonding moment for all of us, and yeah, that's a memory I'll cherish always.
And so, Hijab, if I were to now ask you, imagine yourself in a different reality, and instead of being, say, a general manager, you were right now a cricket player. What kind of a player would you really want to be? Would you want to be a bowler, a batsman, an all-rounder? What area of specialization would you have really taken?
I think I'd like to be someone like Shadab Khan, someone who is a 3D player, someone who is an integral part of your bowling unit, but also your batting unit, and gives you a lot of energy and passion in the field as well, and probably one of the best fielders in the world right now. So if I had a choice that if I wake up as a player tomorrow, I'd probably want to be that kind of player, that's irreplaceable for the team.
That's very interesting. Now, moving on from there, I want to ask you about your love for the game that you've actually developed from a very early age. Who were your then favorite cricket players that you were seeing while you were growing up, and even in the current era, as you've just pointed out, Shadab happens to be one of them. Are there any other similar players that happen to be in your favorite?
It's changed over the years. I used to, when I started watching cricket, I used to love Shoaib Akhtar. Then after that, there was an era where I admired Misbah-ul-Haq for a very long time, especially for his tenacity and the way that he carried the team through difficult times when we didn't have cricket in Pakistan. UAE was our home, and he carried the team and the legacy so gracefully. So I really admired Misbah-ul-Haq for a while. But if you talk about the current batch of players, I'll be honest, it's very hard to pick a favorite because they're all so great. They have they have great personalities, they have great skill, talent, and the way they carry themselves it looks like it's fun being them, at the moment. So it's very hard to pick a favorite. But if I had to, I would pick Pakistan's current skipper, Babar Azam, for that, because I think he's just maybe on a level right now that no one else is globally. So I admire him a lot for what he has done, and I think he's probably one of my most favorite players ever to play for Pakistan.
While Hijab, you were involved in your gig as a commentator. Were there any, especially female commentators that encouraged you or gave you some kind of an advice that helped you, sort of bring that kind of confidence that you thought was much needed, or the kind of, a psychological boost that you thought was much needed in your early career at that point?
Actually, yes, there was one, and her name is Meena Iqbal. She's ex-Pakistan cricketer, and she and I crossed paths in Kashmir Premier League last year. That's when I first got to know her and share a comm box with her. And since then, we've been such good friends. We had such a great connection. The first time we spoke to each other, and even till now, I call her my best friend, although we don't talk that much, but every time we talk, it's amazing. The kind of advice and the way that she carries herself is extremely admirable, and I wish I could be be half the commentator or be half the person that she is, because she's that amazing. So she's always been very supportive. She's given me a lot of boost, a lot of confidence to go for things that I wanted to go for at that point. So yeah, she's played quite a role in my development early on.
So now, Hijab, being yourself as a young woman, where do you see the future of women in cricket? Not just in the aspect of playing the game itself, but in other important roles, as commentators, as umpires, as say, as coaching staff, as support staff. Where do you see the role of women in the years ahead?
Well, I see it expanding, because look, 10 years ago, Pakistan women's cricket team didn't have, didn't exist on the level that they do right now. Things have changed in the past, I would say 3, 4, 5 years, since Pakistan has made since cricket has made its way back to Pakistan, the international cricket we're talking about. It's been I would say slow progress, but progress nonetheless. You see, women journalists. You see a lot of women in the media boxes covering games. You see a lot of presenters coming through, a lot of commentators coming through. You also see people in administrative roles. And although I know so far the first GM of a franchise, I really hope that changes in the near future as well. We see women in some big roles as well in the future, inshallah. So things are progressing, maybe not at the rate that I would want them to, but they're still progressing nonetheless, I would say. So I would say the future is bright, and you inshallah see more and more women come through. At least that's my personal mission, as far as I'm concerned, as being a general manager is concerned, to train more women as analysts, as strategists, as presenters, as designers, as creatives, as content creators, and everything that goes on with cricket outside the field.
My next question then is, as someone who's been a cricket analyst in the past, which people really starstruck you? Because Previously as an observer who was watching cricket on the television, you must have seen people on the screen only. But later onwards, you must have interacted with a lot of these cricketers. So were there any particular cricketers who really struck you and, you were like celebrity struck by some of them?
Oh, you bet there were. There were a lot of them actually, especially in the start. But I think now I'm getting used to it. But the one person that I remember, it was during last year during Kashmir Premier League interviewing Wasim Akram. That was my probably most nerve-wracking moment for me. I've always admired Wasim Akram so much. So he was someone I was very much scared to interview, but he was so good. He made me feel at ease right away, and I was able to conduct the interview. And it was also a live interview. You know that there's no room for error in a live interview. So I was very scared, but he made me feel very much at ease, and I cruised through that interview. And after that, I think there was one moment with Shahid Afridi where I interviewed him for the very first time. That whole starstruck thing comes along, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, about a few of my moments, but yeah, I guess I get a little bit starstruck even now when I see these big legends. But the boys that play right now, the team that we have right now, I've interacted with them enough that they just feel like colleagues now.
That's wonderful. So now let me ask you another very important question, Hijab, and this is basically about, again, the growing role of women in cricket and particularly the PSL. As the general manager, Multan Sultans, let me also ask you that last year or in the last season, we did see, women playing exhibition matches in the last edition. Do you see any prospect, or do you think we really have the resources, the time is right to have more, teams and matches of women within the PSL?
I mean, I would say that it might not happen within the PSL, but there've been talks about conducting a women's PSL, a separate league, but just for the women's, just like a women IPL that you have, or a women's big back leash that you have, a league that you have every year. So something like that, a league that is based and centered just around our women cricketers, and you can invite foreign cricketers from the world to come and play in Pakistan in front of our audiences, so they can know what kind of caliber, what kind of ability the women cricketers around the world possess. And also it will give I think it will give a huge boost to our young lot as well, the one that's playing right now, the under-19 girls and everyone. If they share dressing rooms with players of that caliber, that from England, from West Indies, from Australia, you have some wonderful women cricketers around the world. They'll get a chance to get mentored by them, and what's better than that for their development? So I feel like women's PSL should be a priority at this moment. It's happening in the world. I think Pakistan should step up and take that initiative sooner rather than later, because absolutely you need that. And if you want Pakistan women's team to do well on international level, they need that kind of exposure and those kind of facilities and that kind of backing that the rest of the teams get from their cricket boards respectively.
So Hijab, you definitely now spoke of facilities. You and I, we both come from Islamabad, and nobody can be in a better position than the two of us to relate on this point, that the cricketing infrastructure is relatively far better compared to any other city, in Pakistan. Let's then think of this very same thing, that you have, so many other girls and women that really want to play cricket at the professional level. And then we also have, let's be very honest, young boys who really want to have access to better facilities and infrastructure. Unfortunately, the availability, the democratization of the infrastructure is not as good as we have in Islamabad. What do you think really needs to be done to encourage talent coming from the grassroots level, both boys and girls? And especially for boys, the reason why I say this, I'm sure you can relate it far better than anyone else, that women and girls in general really have a hard time having access to public spaces, even in our society. So what do you think really needs to be done differently at the grassroots level by cricket management and by the local governments to ensure that access is certainly there, so that the young girls can rise above the ranks and make a difference?
Look, the first and the foremost, and I would say the most fundamental thing that needs to be done is to make it a priority. If it's a priority for the cricket board to promote women's cricket, to actually, create a team that's, at the level of our men's team, I would say right now we are the number one team in the world. So, if you want the same kind of results from a women's team, I think it's important to make it just as much a priority as you've made the men's cricket team. So the first thing is to make it priority. When you do that, you start by diagnosing what are the problems with that particular structure that you have right now, what's lacking, what's missing, what's not working at the moment. So that diagnosis would basically be the second step of the process, and then the third step would be to basically fill those gaps. And now all of this that I mentioned is not something that can be done overnight. We understand that as viewers, as fans of the game, we understand that. But I think individually on every single level, even PCB has a lot of levels. There's grade 1, 2, 3, there's domestic, and there's first class, and then there's international. So there are many levels. So there has to be a collective effort from everyone involved in the cricket board, and not just the cricket board. I would say the journalists, the fans, the broadcasters, the advertising companies, and everyone to promote that particular initiative, to give them the airtime, to give them the coverage that they deserve, the games that they play. Their name should be on billboards, just the same way that you see Shaheen Afridi and Babar Azam on every single billboard in Pakistan. I think our women cricketers deserve the same kind of coverage, the same kind of stardom as well that we have bestowed upon our men cricketers. And I think that would do wonders for their own confidence and everything. And as far as the facilities are concerned, like you said, they'll come along as well. Once you make it a priority. Look, once you have acknowledge the fact that we're lacking behind, once you understand that, then you start to make progress. If you have are of the view that what, everything is fine, we don't need to make any more effort, our team is fine, our team is okay, let's just carry things on the way that they are, there's never going to be any improvement. The first step is to understand that we're not maybe at the same level as the rest of the world right now when it comes to women's cricket, and that's where you start to improve things. So I guess, yeah, that could be the framework that could lead towards the improvement of women's cricket.
Hijab, you're certainly too new in your role, and I know it's too early to have any kind of I must say concrete expectations. But I don't think it would be wrong to ask you: would you be having any plans in particular to get other teams on board to make a push, for a greater role for women in cricket, especially at the PSL level?
Oh, absolutely. That's a given. Because look, the first thing was to get a chair at the table. That was the first step, right? So once I have that, once I have a voice, once I have the authority, or I would say the option, to make myself heard, obviously, like I told you, it's my personal mission to make sure that more and more women come through. I've opened a door, maybe a little bit, but I want to open it wide. I want to have it wide open for anyone who is competent enough, for everyone who's passionate enough to work in this industry. Because let me tell you, every other industry in the world is very different from the cricket industry, because, or I would say sport industry, because the people who work here, they work here because they love it, every single moment of it, right? It doesn't feel like work. My job does not feel like work to me, not even for a second. Even if I'm working 12 hours nonstop, it doesn't feel like work to me. And that's the best part. I will always give my 200% to this, because that's how much I love the game, and that's how much I love my team. And I'm talking about both my teams, by the way, my team Multan Sultans and Pakistan, both of them. So that's how much I love them. So this is the drive, basically. So the first step was to get a chair at the table, and now I have to make myself heard. So like you said, it's too early to tell, obviously, what will happen, and if I'll be heard or not, I don't know. But I'm very grateful that I at least have a voice that I can use, probably, to make things a little bit easier, maybe make the pathway a little bit more clearer for the upcoming lot.
All right, Hijab, before we go ahead and wrap up our conversation, my last question is, if Indian and Pakistani players were playing in each other's league, my question is, what players from Pakistan would you really like to see play in Indian Premier League? And what Indian players would you really like to see play in Pakistan's Super League?
If we're talking about Pakistan team playing in IPL, I think every single player that we have on the roster right now would be a hot commodity for IPL. And you can call me biased, or you can call me anything for making that claim, but we are an exceptional team right now, and I'm extremely proud of that. If you talk about, a batting unit, you have, exciting talent. You have Babar Azam, you have Mohammad Rizwan, you have, Iftikhar Ahmed, such a dynamic personality. It's so much fun to see them bat. And you have, you have some youngsters coming along. You have Muhammad Haris, you have Saima Ayub. So I'd actually like to see all of them get that kind of exposure and that kind of, to play cricket on that kind of level. So and obviously, if I talk about our pace battery, our bowling unit, I mean, who doesn't talk about that? It's the best in the world right now. You have Shaheen Afridi, you have Haris Rofe, you have Naseem Shah, you have Wasim Jr. The list is long. So, like I said, I want each and every one of them to get an opportunity to play there if that's where if that's the scenario. When it comes to Indian players playing in PSL, obviously I'd like to see some of their new talent, feature in PSL. They have exciting players like Shreyas. They have exciting players like Shubman Gill. A couple of bowlers. I really like the way Hardik Pandya plays. He's the vice captain as well, and I think he's such a tenacious character. I've seen him, take the game away from opponents, mostly us, a number of times. But there's one name that I would really like to see in Pakistan. That's Virat Kohli, and I think he is someone who will really enjoy playing in Pakistan as well. I think he loves the Pakistan team. I think and everyone in Pakistan really admires him as well. A player of his stature playing in Pakistan would be great for everyone. It would be very, very fun to watch that.
Hijab, thank you really so much for taking the time out and making this conversation possible. We really wish you all the best in your new role, and we really hope that you take women's role in cricket to newer heights.
Inshallah, that's the hope. Thank you so much. It was lovely being here and lovely speaking to you guys. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for staying with us through this conversation with Miss Hijab Zahid. Our team works very hard to make this work possible, and it would mean the world to us if you could like and share our content to show your support. And if you'd like to stay informed on upcoming podcasts and other work, please hit the bell icon.